Okay, Kevin, I'm just going to ask you the interview questions for the Nelson generating plant. So if you were to be asked what your main products and outputs here at the plant are, what would you have to say to that?
Well, our main product being power to the utility. So like I say, in the period of a year, we supply about 50% of the power. The rest comes from FortisBC.
Okay, perfect. Which brings me to the great question of who do you think your main customers and your markets are?
Main probably being the people within the city limits, and then the rural areas. Not necessarily separated from each other, but that is our main customers.
And I know that you've mentioned it before, but your surrounding areas, take us through to Blewett, take us to Coffee Creek.
Yep.
And how far towards Whitewater?
Just prior to Cottonwood Lake.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So production capacity. So I know today we only have 2 of the generators or the turbines working. Yep. What would you say your production capacity is here?
So our normal capacity is 9.1 megawatts or 9,100 kilowatts, and that's what we produce like 95% of the time. So then during freshet, during the spring, when the extra water is available, we can produce up to 16 megawatts.
Okay.
By running our older standby units.
And not on the question sheet, but I ask you every time, do you remember what the BC Hydro Dam above us produces? I always like to put things in perspective.
It is 130 per, so about 520 megawatts.
Wow.
Between 4 units.
Wow.
Total. So I think each unit's about 120, somewhere in there.
Wow. Yeah. That's cool. And do you know Fortis by any chance?
Across the river, they have a capacity of, I think, about 60 megawatts.
Okay.
But typically they're running about 10.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. Awesome. So again, on the tour, we see that the generators and turbines were all put in at different times, but what would you say that the year was that it was built?
So I believe they started building here, start construction about 1904, 1905, and that unit 1 was running in 1907.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And again, I know that you work for the city of Nelson. I'm not going to ask you how many employees work with the city of Nelson, but how many people would you say would be actually working here at the generating plant?
So there's myself, that is the more common person out here, and then we have 2 electricians.
Okay, so 3 of you basically.
Yeah, and our customer service person is also a 4th person that will take the call, the 1 week per month. There's 4 of us, so it works out to 1 week per month we have somebody on call, but he is also an electrician as well.
Oh, okay. And I know, again, not on the sheets, but you're not here all the time, are you? How often do you actually come here?
The minimum is Mondays and Fridays, or Mondays and Thursdays kind of thing, early in the week and later in the week, to do a walkthrough if there's stuff going on elsewhere.
Okay.
But that's the minimum. So yeah, if we're doing unit annual maintenance, which can take about a couple weeks per unit, and it typically starts somewhere about now in the new year. We'll start with the older units and then work up to the bigger units closer to just before freshet kind of thing. And then by freshet, we're to have all the units available to run for the duration, which can be up to 2 months, like early June till mid-July typically.
Right. And when you guys are doing maintenance, is it just you and the electricians, or do you guys have to call other people in?
We do all our typical maintenance, but we do have an electrical contractor that will do the winding tests, which are only done about every 4 years.
Okay.
On the actual generator windings themselves and related equipment.
Perfect. So the next question, again, how many operator positions are at this plant? So you guys aren't operators, but as you mentioned, 1 millwright and 2 electricians, and then your customer service, who also happens to be an electrician. So basically 4 of you.
Yep.
How long have you worked with the city of Nelson, Kevin?
Coming up 28 years this summer.
Good for you. And so always in this current millwright position?
Yep.
Perfect. And here at the generating plant, do you guys have muster stations?
Yes, we do. So that is just this area to my left here at our lunchroom.
Okay, perfect. So this is a big question. In this plant, what do you consider the key operator skills and knowledge?
Oh, and it takes a bit of time to acquire these, but it is just getting to know the equipment, the day-to-day kind of operation stuff, which in a hydro generating facility is pretty minimal compared to other facilities. But yeah, there's just little incidentals. You know, when we have certain alarms, everything is logged. You know, we have a paper trail for all kind of little occurrences or whatever. So it's a matter of reflecting on those past,
Right.
to kind of understand if it's something really unusual or more typical to what the unit behaves like. So
Right. So being aware. So when you go down there, you guys can probably smell, hear, or feel something's possibly
Exactly,
out of
yeah.
line, and it takes
Yeah.
time to get that knowledge.
yeah, but typically, like I say, hydro plants are so pretty good running machines,
Right.
in that sense that their occurrences for problems are pretty seldom.
Ah, well, that's nice and lucky, and I guess that's what gets you guys just here a couple times a week, hopefully.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Okay, so what are the main day-to-day challenges that you could face here at the generating plant?
Day-to-day challenges, seasonal, water related. At times we have more debris in the water, so depending on even the year, sometimes we have what we call water strainers, because we do run water through cooling coils. So some years are worse than others for just having those cleaned. Like typically this time of year the water's very clean, so they can go a couple months. But we've had occurrences where those water strainers actually need cleaning every few hours.
Right. Oh, wow.
And like I say, other occurrences like that are pretty seldom, but that's about one that pops in my head.
Okay, perfect. What do you consider your main duties when you're here specifically at the generating plant?
Oh, main duties. Wintertime, there is a whole array. So everything from snow removal to, again, just keeping the powerhouse clean. It does get a little bit dusty and dirty in there, and there's painting to be done, and a pretty wide array of tasks. Just
Perfect.
keeping your eyes and ears peeled. This morning I was just changing out a little air filter that filters the air to go to a braking system on one of our units. So the little bowl of that air cleaner there had a little crack in it, just deterioration over time.
Right.
So that was picked up just again by the hearing there, hearing a little wisp of air. And
Right. It's going to take a while to replace Kevin here at the generating plant. You're a millwright. What maintenance tasks are performed here, and who performs them? So out of the 3 electricians and 1 millwright, you guys, how do you divvy out the maintenance?
well, typically the electricians do the electrical and I do the mechanical, and often I'll need help or they'll need help, so we can assist each other in the main jobs that are performed.
Perfect. Here's a really important question. What is the most important thing a new operator would need to know if they were going to come and work in your generating plant?
Oh, probably just learning limitations. Again, you know, this stuff takes time to pick up depending on who the person is and where they came from before. So again, everybody as a whole, just understanding each other's limitations and that new person's limitations, so what they really know and what is safe for them to perform until getting them up to speed
Right.
on the knowledge.
Right. You mentioned logbooks and that you pretty much log everything. So the next question says, what type of records do you keep?
Sadly, but it's all handwritten.
Right.
Not sadly, that's just reality. But at some point we might be getting them electronically done, but at this point they're still basically just done by hand.
So when you come in, what type of logs do you keep? Like date you came in, things you noticed, things that you've changed out?
Yeah, so each unit has its own 3-ring binder.
Okay.
Some of the units have 2 3-inch 3-ring binder, just because they're so old. So the records date back, typically the records like on our units 2 and 3 go back to the 50s, and unit 4 as well, pretty much from new.
Wow.
So it's a lot of data, but it's very valuable
Yeah.
when you're having problems, you know, to be able to look back and say, okay, when we have this problem last, or is it something new?
Right. That's
Often it's
a
not
good
something
point.
new. Often it's something that you forgot about that happened 10 years ago or something.
right. You can learn from those and what you did through the logbook. Perfect. coming to the end here, but can you describe an emergency situation or an abnormal operating condition that you've encountered in the past, and how did you respond? And last part of that is, what was the main concern at the time?
Oh, you probably know this story. So our Unit 5 incurred a major failure on its first birthday. That was back in 1996, where we were going to shut it down to replace some of the carbon brushes for the exciter, and upon shutting it down, it didn't actually stop. So we thought it had another problem with wicket gate stopping water flow, but it turned out that the main breaker for the generator itself did not open, so it actually was motoring. So that turned out to be quite a catastrophic failure. The unit continued to turn for 20 minutes, so the amount of heat that was generated in the generator itself by running as a very inefficient motor totally destroyed the windings. So after the unit was finally stopped, after about 20 minutes of motoring, yeah, it turned into a whole legal issue, and it wasn't till about a year later that it actually ran again, and it was about a $3 million repair.
Wow.
So through all that, it was the main thing that I learned through that too, is just your own personal safety. And I was working with another coworker at the time, and for the both of us, being in a building during something like that is not somewhere where you should be. And we did vacate the building right away, that other powerhouse. So that's like job one, is just your own safety and other people's safety until things can be done in a safe manner to help control what's going on.
Yeah, that must have been scary.
Once again, I'd like to thank the City of Nelson for allowing us this amazing tour. And again, Kevin Johnson, millwright for the City of Nelson, for such a wonderful tour and such a great interview. Thank you, everybody.